Can Hamas live up to its part of the ceasefire deal? Does the group even want to? Questions that are growing louder today as Israel waits for the return of the bodies of the hostages that were killed on October 7th or died in captivity. So far, Hamas has handed over only some of their remains. The Red Cross warns that retrieving and identifying the bodies of Israeli hostages as well as Palestinians set to be repatriated will be a difficult and lengthy process. Israel has released the remains of an unspecified number of Palestinians to their relatives in Gaza and is supposed to hand over more, according to the agreement. Accusing Hamas of acting in bad faith, they have for now announced that aid flowing into Gaza as part of the deal will be restricted. Let's bring in Gershon Baskin. He's an Israeli peace activist and author and veteran hostage negotiator. Gershon, good to have you back on the show. The Red Cross calls the return of the remains of the dead Israeli hostages a massive challenge. Why is this such a difficult task?
We're talking about 24 remaining deceased hostages whose place of burial is not necessarily known by Hamas. There are a few objective reasons that need to be taken into account. Many of the Hamas commanders who were charged with burying the hostages are no longer alive. Israel killed them. The second objective reason is that there are thousands of Palestinians from Gaza buried underneath the rubble of buildings that Israel bombed, and those people are designated as missing. Their whereabouts are not known, and it is very possible that there are Israeli hostages underneath the building, these buildings that were bombed as well. I hope that Hamas is not playing games as they are being accused by the Israeli side. There is an international mechanism that was designed within the framework of the deal that was signed between Israel and Hamas involving Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. I understand this evening that the Egyptian intelligence presence went into Gaza to work with Hamas to find these bodies. There's lots of bad blood and lots of mistrust between the two parties. The Israelis are accusing Hamas of breaching the agreement. Hamas is accusing Israel of breaching the agreement. Apparently, some people in Gaza were killed today by Israel, and Israel announced that it is limiting the entrance of humanitarian aid into Gaza tomorrow by half. This is a very bad news, and the Americans and the mediators need to get right back into it and make sure that this deal continues and that the war, in fact, continues to be over.
How big a threat do you consider all of what you just laid out to be to this budding peace process?
It's very, very serious. There's no reason for Israel and Hamas to trust each other. And we need the Americans, Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, and even President Trump to weigh in here. I have advised Hamas to put out an announcement that they have every intention of meeting the terms of the agreement and returning the remaining 24 Israeli deceased hostages. I've also urged Israel to provide the mediators with any intelligence information that they claim that they have on the whereabouts of Israeli bodies in Gaza. I don't know why this information doesn't flow on its own. It should. I spoke to the Egyptian intelligence and told them that the Israelis have intelligence information, and if they ask for it, they get it. The Egyptians asked me, why do we have to ask for it? Why didn't they just give it? That's the nature of our region right now. There's still a lot of mistrust and a lot of suspicions.
Yeah, that's a very shaky basis to build such a delicate process on. You were closely involved in the negotiations of this plan, and it has been criticized as being too vague. So I'm hoping to get more clarity and more detail from you. What exactly happens next if the ceasefire, in fact, holds?
Well, the Egyptian foreign minister recently, in the last hour, announced that a 15-member Gaza committee will take over the governance of Gaza, that the Egyptians vetted all the names with all the Palestinian factions, including Hamas, as well as with Israel, and I'm assuming that very soon those names will be announced. There's a meeting taking place right now in Ramallah between President Abbas and Nasser al-Qidwa, a former Palestinian foreign minister, a nephew of Yasser Arafat, someone who originates from Gaza. Maybe he will be appointed to have some task in the new Gaza government. The important thing is that Gaza will be ruled by Gazans for Gazans, and this looks like it's moving forward. The United States will be going to the Security Council next week with a resolution to embody the agreement within the framework of a UN Security Council resolution, which will provide the legal international mandate for a multilateral, multinational force to go to Gaza, made up of Arab countries and Muslim countries and some European countries. And that's very important because that will be the biggest assurance that Israel will not attack Gaza again and that Hamas will not attack Israel. So these things are all very urgent. There's a plan for a meeting close soon in Cairo with countries invited to make commitments to provide finance for the rebuilding of Gaza. And the Board of Peace that Trump talked about as being an oversight mechanism is in the process of being formulated. I think that President Trump probably spoke to some of the 31 leaders who were in Sharm el-Sheikh with him at the peace meeting after he visited Israel. So things are underway and there are positive signs, but it's very, very fragile now, and we have to make sure that the ceasefire is not broken.
You have been in contact as well with Hamas leadership. Will they disarm, and what will that process look like?
Yeah, the issue of disarming Hamas is a much smaller problem than people are making it sound. First of all, there is no Hamas army anymore. Hamas has the ability to continue to engage in insurgency and to kill Israeli soldiers as long as there are Israeli soldiers in Gaza. But Hamas knows that their biggest challenge is that the people of Gaza don't want them anymore. The overwhelming majority of Gazans are fed up of Hamas, blame Hamas for the destruction that's been brought down on them. They, of course, blame Israel, but they hold Hamas responsible for the decision that they made to commit collective national suicide on October 7th, 2023. And the Gazans don't want to see anyone from Hamas anymore.
Many U.S. presidents have tried their hand at bringing peace to the Middle East, and they have failed. What is different this time around?
Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a different character.
As easy as that? Why?
It's easy as that because Benjamin Netanyahu could not say no to Donald Trump. The biggest problem was getting Trump to understand that Hamas would not surrender, because he was under the assumption that the Israelis fed him, that Israel's military might could force Hamas to surrender. But Hamas is not a kind of organization that would surrender. They would fight to the last Gazan rather than surrender. The change came when the failed Israeli assassination attempt of the Hamas leadership in Doha in Qatar. And after a week, 10 days of assessing the fallout from that, Donald Trump came to the conclusion that America's national security interest, America's financial interest, maybe his own personal interest, are based in the Arab Gulf states. And therefore, he brought Netanyahu to Washington, forced Netanyahu to apologize to the Qatari prime minister. He scripted that. And then he told Netanyahu that the war is over. You will agree to it. We will get you all of your hostages, but the war is going to end. And then Donald Trump converted that statement into reality by posting it on his Truth Social. And he did the same thing with Hamas.
Mm-hmm. Now, everything you've laid out sounds like a very much top-down approach to peace, and that is certainly part of the equation, but another part is the reconciliation of the Israeli and the Palestinian people. How do you envision that process? How can there be healing that leads to a lasting, peaceful coexistence?
Right. I think we need to frame what's happening right now as not an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement, not even an Israeli-Palestinian peace agreement. It is ending the chapter of this war in Gaza. The process of reconciliation will take considerably a longer period of time. We have to take into account that both Israeli society and Palestinian society are deeply traumatized by the last 2 years. We have political leaders, both in Israel and Palestine, who are incapable of leading us toward peace. Both sides will go to elections over the next year and hopefully elect a new leadership that will direct us in peace. The only conclusion I think that Israelis and Palestinians must come to when they get back to their senses is that we can't keep doing this. We've been killing each other for 100 years. It gets worse and worse each time. The last 2 years have been devastating for both societies, for both peoples. There remain 7 million Israeli Jews and 7 million Palestinian Arabs living between the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea. And this has to be the last Israeli-Palestinian war. The only solution on the table that can work is a two-state solution. We need all the countries of the world to embrace it. We need to get the Israeli society to understand that a Palestinian state next to Israel This is the only way that Israel could remain the democratic nation state of the Jewish people. Because if Israel doesn't recognize Palestinian freedom, Israel will never have security. And if the Palestinians don't recognize the need for Israeli security, they will never have freedom. This is the deal here. It's security and it's freedom. Security for Israel and freedom for the Palestinians.
And a very long road ahead. That was Gershon Baskin, veteran Israeli hostage negotiator. We're very grateful for your insights tonight. Thanks so much.
Thank you.